But I feel like if I'd have been more consistent and stopped chasing the shiny object, then I would have had a lot more leads and a lot more opportunities. We were looking at a property, but as we walked in, there was a family photo and my client walked up to it and she took a picture of it. The owner was watching us in the camera inside the home, saw her take a picture of their family photo. And so I'm going to lock the door and she starts yelling at me in the Ring doorbell camera. I mean, AI is not necessarily going to replace us. I mean, it's going to help us, obviously, and bring a lot of value to our businesses and be able to put us in a lot of more places that we couldn't be all at one time. Nobody's going to buy a house from a robot. Nobody's going to buy a house just online and not have that, understanding. And when you show your true value, when you're walking in and out of a house, it's huge to those buyers and sellers.
Welcome back to our Successful Agent series, where we feature real estate agents doing big things in real estate. In each episode, we cover the starting point of their real estate journey to really understand what it takes to build a real estate business from the ground floor to the penthouse. And today we get to sit down with none other than Michelle Swann, an absolute juggernaut in real estate. She's been consistently in the top 0.01% of not just her real estate market, but in every single real estate brokerage she's been a part of. Whether it's been a brokerage of 4,000 agents or 90,000 agents, she absolutely dominates. Now you're gonna absolutely wanna tune in to hear the story of her very first real estate transaction. It was so compelling that I'm still DMing her asking questions about it. Now something else you're gonna really enjoy is when she shares how to sell millions in real estate per month on a consistent basis. This is a type of information that I wish I had access to when I first started. And in fact, this information is so valuable that I'll be sharing this content with all of the hundreds of agents that join our real estate group moving forward. So I really hope that you enjoy listening to this Successful Agent. Welcome back to our Successful Agent series. Today, I have the absolute pleasure of sitting down with Michelle Swann, an absolute force. There's so much value that you're about to gain. It's unreal. So this is going to be one of those videos that you're going to need to save and you're going to need to come back to again and again and again, and you're going to see exactly why. But before we go into some actual content, Michelle Swann, how the heck are you?
I'm fabulous. I'm so glad to be able to sit down and have a conversation with you. And it's like catching up with old times. So yeah, I'm doing great. Thank you.
That's what's up. That's what's up. Well, let's hear a little bit about who you are. Let's talk about what market you're in and also how you got into real estate, and then we'll launch from there.
Okay. So obviously my name is Michelle Swann. I've been in real estate about 6 years now, a little over 6 years. Come from a couple different brokerages. I think I tried my footing in all of them and ended up at a great place at EXP. And I initially have spent the majority of my career doing dental hygiene. So I was trained in the medical field, and it was, a difficult transition, I will say the least. And some people who have sales background or some people who already have a corporate background or a business background can kind of flow into this a little bit easier. But when you don't have a lot of people that you know, such as your sphere of influence or family members around, it does make real estate transition a little bit more of a challenge. So I do feel like that was a little bit of a tougher grind for me to kind of build my way up the ladder over this past 6 years.
Yeah, I could totally relate. One of the questions that I like to ask our agents that that are going through this series is, was anybody in your family in real estate? Like, how did this come about, or what I call, were you a first generation agent?
Definitely a first generation agent. And actually, I just knew, in my heart of heart, I just couldn't do this anymore. I've been doing dental hygiene for 25 years. I needed to do something else in my life. And I was just asking a lot of patients, what are you doing? What are you doing? What can I do next? And I was just kind of searching, in the careers that my patients had. And a couple of realtors came in and they're like, oh, it's great, but it's a tough business. And I think in my denial and, naiveness was like, oh, sure, I'll do that. And it'll be great. But yeah, it's a grind and you do have to put in the work. And so I feel like, you have to take that seriously, and it's not just a part-time job. And so I took the leap and quit hygiene and jumped into this and been full force grinding ahead ever since.
That's a common theme that I've been hearing lately. Without fail, the first generation agents, it's either there was a bad transaction or somebody said, hey, you'd be good at this, or HGTV has come up several times. And then there's the hey, this is much easier than it actually is. Let me rephrase that. Yeah, they're thinking that it's easy, and
Yes, exactly.
that's a common misconception, as we all know at this point. But going a little bit further into that, one of the things that I really like to feature and highlight is where we began, because the audience at this point knows the notoriety that you have in this market, the amount of success that you're having and continue to have, but it certainly doesn't start there. So let's talk about that beginning. And no better way to start than in your first transaction. So what was your first transaction like? How did you get the business? What was the process like? Was it smooth? Was it terrible? We really want the gossip here.
Okay. So yes, here's the tea. So yeah, I'm, licensed, kind of struggling. What do I do? Where do I get my next business from? And not having family in the area at all is like, well, where do I lean on? I don't have that immediate support. And it ended up being an old neighbor who moved to Kansas City. And she also got her real estate license in Kansas City. And she said, hey, I have a client moving into Dallas. I would love to share them with you. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is great. Absolutely. And when you're new, you're hungry, you're ready to go. So I said, yes, absolutely. Send me this client over here. And so they end up coming into town. And of course, when it's a referral, there's a buy-in. And so I'm not telling them that I don't have any transactions. I'm not telling, it's fake it till you make it. You go out there, you smile, and you let them know that you've got this, right? And so that's what I did. And so, I'm showing them homes, but the really bad thing is that they didn't know where they wanted to be in DFW. And the job, it didn't matter where they were. So we kind of looked at 7 or 8 cities. And we did this for over about, I want to say at least 3 months. So it took quite some time to just, continuously they were coming into town and I was showing them homes and showing them homes. I think I showed at least 50 homes to them. But during this time, I had an experience that I probably will never forget. And so when always somebody says to you, what was one thing you'll never forget in real estate? This was one of them. We were looking at a property and we were trying to kind of ignore the fact that a lot of rooms, one was red, one was dark blue, one was purple. And so we were kind of moving past that. But as we walked in, there was a real bat pinned to the wall. There was a family photo on the wall, and there was nothing but a blank wall and an 8x10 family photo. And my client walked up to it and she took a picture of it. And I did not know this. I turned my head and was walking around the house, and I was looking at actual skeleton that was hanging in one of the other rooms, like a real skeleton, like one in biology class. So I was kind of looking at that. And so we obviously talked a little bit while we were in the house. We turned around, we walked out. And the owner was watching us in the camera inside the home, saw her take a picture of their family photo, which I didn't know. And so I'm going to lock the door and she starts yelling at me in the Ring doorbell camera and says, hey, your client just took a picture of my family and she needs to delete that right away. So needless to say, I'm a little bit panicked, and I looked around at my client and I asked her if she took a picture, and she said, yes, I did. And I said, why? And she said, I was going to put it on Facebook. And I was like, so she said she would delete it. And we moved on from there. But yeah, she did actually report me to TREC and tried to get me in trouble. But nothing came of it. But it was a little bit of this is not a good job for me if I have to be worried about this kind of stuff. So that was my first transaction.
What the heck?
Yeah.
They're putting it on Facebook for what? Now I'm curious. Like, what the heck's going on?
I think just to be like, these people are crazy, because they looked a little off. And I think that it was more just that they looked the way they looked in the picture. And she was just judging. I think she thought it was funny. And so she was going to share it with her friends.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Ooh, all right. So some people do anything for the click.
Yes, exactly.
That's interesting. Well, did they buy a house?
They ended up buying a house. They ended up finding one finally in Lantana, actually. And they ended up buying it. And then 2 years later, calling me and then selling it with me as well. And they moved away. They moved to Florida.
Yeah. All right. So I guess that one picture was worth it.
Yeah. Just the embarrassment of it all. It paid off, I guess, in the end. Yes.
That's exactly. Crazy. That's crazy. Well, let's, that's interesting. It poses so many other questions, but I'm I'm not going to ask them out of respect. I know you have a busy schedule, so out of respect to your time and the audience, just speculate down below in the comment section what you're thinking. One of the questions that transitioning into, fast forwarding to where you are in your business right now. Again, the audience has a really good understanding of the amount of success that you're having at the moment and continue to build. So tell us a bit about how that's happening. Is referrals a big part of your business now? Is it like, where are you focused right now to generate such a massive amount of traction?
Yeah. And as I kind of run the numbers every year and kind of look at my past clients and I build on that in the sense of I want to continue to have those relationships with those people. I'm not transactional. I'm definitely relational, and I want to continue to build that. And so when I'm working with people, I want to make sure that they know that I'm there forever. And so if there's a question about what kind of dishwasher should I buy, one of my clients just actually texted me that. Just because I may have some experience in which ones are bad or which ones are good. And so, I always want to be that resource to them. So regardless of what that question is, they know they can reach out to me. And I do quite a few events as well throughout the year so that I can be face-to-face with them, because it just is not the same on the phone or an email, and getting face-to-face is huge. So I do a client event party at the end of the year, and everybody loves Thanksgiving because it's such a great time. It's family bonding. And so I provide a pie for them, and they come by and pick it up, and they can come and go as they choose. So it's just a good time to get together still. And it's not like, the middle of the winter where no one wants to leave yet. So that's one of the things I'm doing right now.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So as far as staying relational, talk to us about, that's something that a lot of us don't do. Let's just be real. And I recognize that, myself included. I'm more of a transaction person. If I get a text later after I cash my commission check, I get upset. I don't, but just giving you a little bit of a sense of where the mentality is for a lot of agents.
Right.
When you're saying like you're relational, at any point hey, are you looking to buy or sell? Or like, what does that look like? Are you just in community with them and we're doing life together, and at some point you're going to need to buy a house and you're going to remember that I'm doing this? Or how do we go from personal, relational to, all right, let's transact?
I think the one way that I just kindly ask for those type of referrals is when I'm either doing a home anniversary or a birthday card, just letting them know that I'm always there for their friends and family. So the nice way of asking for that referral a couple of times a year at least. Probably should do it a lot more often, but at least 2 times a year I'm dropping in and saying, hey, I'm here for your friends and family if you have any referrals. So, and then again, with my events, as well, if I see them face to face, I'm going to ask that same thing. If anybody, let me know, I'm here to help everybody.
That's fair. That's fair. One of the things that I really appreciate about you is your online presence. And I know you're going to roll your eyes because you're probably not going to agree with me on this, but you get a lot of individuals calling you from out of state. And that's not something that is, yes, relocation exists, obviously. But when it comes to people just from out of state giving you a call, I've actually been in your presence whenever you've gotten those types of calls. Is that something that you're intentional with? How did you gain such a presence to where folks from Florida, New York, California, all the places are calling, but they end up calling Michelle Swann? So have you been intentional with that, or what does that look like?
I mean, it's not really been intentional. I'm not advertising in Florida or California per se, but I am, with existing clients. And then also when they go on Google. And that's been huge for me people search first on Google. So if they're like Frisco Realtor and they look, and I try to keep my reviews up. So that's really important to me. And I think a lot of agents don't try to build their Google reviews. But I mean, let's be honest, if we're going to go anywhere and do anything, like I went to Chinese food last night and I went to a place that had 5 stars. Because of the fact that I'm like, all right, if everybody else likes this, it's probably pretty good. I'm not going to go to a 2-star restaurant and just test the theory. So I would rather, I think people feel the same way when they get on Google. Like, let's see who's got some high reviews. And I know of big teams that don't have very many reviews at all. It's just not where they're putting their efforts. And for me, it's just like, that's important to me. So, and I have had people get on Zillow with the same thing. Other agents have gotten on Zillow and said, hey, looks like you're doing well. I have a referral for you. I'm like, oh, perfect. So, those are a few ways that I feel like have gotten me from out-of-state buyers.
That's fair. That's fair. So one of the questions that we like to ask in this particular series, especially, is at the point like where you are right now. Imagine that for a second. If you could go back, I believe it's been 6 years since you've been in real estate. If you could accelerate those 6 years or really condense them, what are some moves that you wish you would have done sooner to get you right back to where you are right now? Essentially, it's the hindsight is 2020 type of a question, where has there been any sort of investment in a certain lead source? Has there been a certain move in your business that when you made a switch, there's an instant click? Or like, what are some things that you wish you would have done sooner to get you back to where you are right now?
I feel like, I don't regret anything, because obviously everything is a testimony and a learned lesson during this. But I feel like if I'd have been more consistent and stopped chasing the shiny object, then I would have had a lot more leads and a lot more opportunities. But I feel like just because every time that there's, a new lead generation or a new platform, I try it for a little while, I give up, I try it for a little while, and I just don't put the longevity in. And it's just because everything's so expensive and you just have to put so much money into it. And it's hard to really say, this is worth it for a year to do. And so for me personally, I think it's just not lead generating like I should have consistently. And again, I hadn't had to, because I've had so many referrals. So I think that's, I love that, because it speaks to me, to my relationship with my clients. But, I'd like to have more options.
That's fair. That's fair. For the agent that's coming in, there's a lot of uncertainty. Let's call it that. There's a lot of, you can call it uncertainty. You could call it change, you can call it whatever you want to call it, whether that's the whole NAR situation, whether that's the whole commission situation, whether that's AI. There's a lot of different things that are happening in real estate right now. So for those agents that are getting into this market, it's uncertain, and I think at any point in time it is uncertain, but what would you advise those agents that are just getting into the industry to do, to really focus on? So maybe in 2 years or 3 years, I'm not even talking about just instant results. I'm talking about in 2 or 3 years, they'll have something to show for the time that they're investing right now. What advice would you have for those agents?
I think, to be honest, it still goes back to relationships. AI is not necessarily going to replace us. It's going to help us, obviously, and bring a lot of value to our businesses, and be able to put us in a lot of more places that we couldn't be all at one time. But in theory, it really goes back to, we have to be, nobody's going to buy a house from a robot. Nobody's going to buy a house just online and not have that, understanding. And when you show your true value, when you're walking in and out of a house, it's huge to those buyers and sellers. So whether it's the sellers that really want you to know you're going to be their advocate and you've got their back, or the buyers that are like, no, I can make sure that you're not going to just buy a house that you're going to regret in a year or two. So that is not something that AI can replace. And again, same thing with NAR. We have to prove our value to those buyers and sellers. And I think that they do appreciate it once they really see it, but they have to be educated first.
That's such a good point. And oftentimes I think, going back to hindsight's 2020, right? But oftentimes we as agents, maybe not everybody, but a good amount of agents really they didn't have value to give because they never really worked on their business, or they just thought their services were valueless, so much so where they're saying that partly is what got us in trouble. Let's be fair. The buyer doesn't have to pay the commission. Like I work for free, basically, right? So that's what they're essentially saying, that the service is free and it should be free. So now we're having to litigate that literally as we speak.
Exactly.
Day 3 of the trial. So that was a big component of it. So I really appreciate that angle that fact, because a lot of us, we tend to undersell what we're doing.
Right, exactly.
And one single sentence, one single observation, one single piece of advice can save your clients thousands of dollars, whether that's, hey, let's lock in the rate right now because we don't know if this is ever going to happen. Hey, I know you've been thinking about buying next year. Next year, if we were saying this last year, you would have come out like a superhero, incredible, right? So there's a lot of different things that we take either for granted or we don't value ourselves, and something's happening. But you highlighting that in several other conversations that I've seen you lead is so critical. Is that something that how can I ask this correctly so it doesn't come across just so vague?
No, but it is pivotal. I mean, it's pivotal in the relationship that they understand the value that I'm bringing. So if I don't show that value and I just open doors and I'm just a door opener, then it makes sense, because anybody can fill a contract if you get out of, real estate school. So fine, but in reality, they have to know that regardless, I'm there for them when something goes wrong. And it just happened. I, recommended on new construction that she get an inspection, a third-party inspector. Well, the washer and dryer area was leaking water all over the place, and she wouldn't have known it until she hooked up her washer and dryer. So she was super glad that we were able to catch this before she got everything moved in, turn her washer and dryer on. And she was like, oh, I'm so glad we did that inspection, because you never know with new construction. And so, again, the expertise that we are bringing to them that a lot of people don't realize when they're buying new construction, they don't feel like they need a realtor at all. So
1,000,000%.
I think that makes a big difference.
So Michelle, I know that you're in constant growth mode. For those agents that are wanting either to build proximity to you, advice, or even join your growing team, how can they get a hold of you? What's the best way to connect?
Definitely. You can go search me on EXP. You can go to swansellsdallas@gmail.com. So it's my last name, sellsdallas@gmail. Of course, you can call me on my cell number, 214-717-2272. I'd love to connect with realtors. This business is all about networking and who you know. And that's one thing I think EXP does really well, is to be able to connect you with a lot of people, because we all work in this business together. And when the more people you know, the bigger your circle gets, the healthier that you are in your business.
And instead of better myself, let me drop the mic real quick.
Okay.
The mic has been dropped. I appreciate the heck out of you. Everybody else, thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you connect with Michelle. And Michelle, thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely. Good to see you again.